now we touched on it earlier, but the YouTube channel. First of all, like it went by the name the Hollowverse originally, but now it's reverted to your name. Yeah, so I mean, anyone searching for it can, search Mike Hollow. It still comes up when you search the Hollowverse. I mean, can you comment on the name change or no?
Yeah, so I didn't know what name to go with originally, and it started off as just me playing fighting games and uploading matches. There was no real like commentary on them. There was nothing really going on. Sometimes I would post thoughts about games I wanted to see. And then with the way the world was, and obviously when Trump was in office, politics sort of like bled into everything,
Oh yeah,
and
oh
like
yeah.
games started becoming very like socially political, I guess, or socially woke or whatever. And I got sick of it, and I was like, you know, I'm just gonna put my name out there. I'm gonna slap my name on it, and I'm just gonna say how I feel about this stuff because I think people that people like me are told to behave a certain way or told to think a certain way, and I didn't really like what I was seeing from other gamers, with especially with the way games were going on video game companies. So I thought,
Yeah.
let me change up the channel a bit. Let me step away from just playing fighting games and let me upload my fighting game footage with commentary on some sort of topic that was going on. So then I just changed the name because I was like, let me be open about who's talking behind here so people know who it is. And it just went from there. In America, one angry gamer has been extremely vocal about their disdain for anything to do with what's happening right now. They seem to have lumped rioters and looters in with peaceful protesters, which is fine, you know, that's the way they want to look at it, that's their perspective. But they seem to have taken it a step further. Actually, it seems like they've taken it around 430 steps further because any company and any person that has pointed out that racism is wrong and that they stand with the protesters has been labeled traitors of America. Now, it's important to note, I'm saying they're standing with the protesters and that's what they've said, so that's what I'm going to go with. Whether you believe corporations are trying to like profit off of people, you know, that's another argument, and you know, they're probably valid in saying that, but I'm just going off the things that some people have said and some companies have said.
Yeah, because I've noticed this too, especially within the last 4 years, whether it was a result of Trump getting in office or something else. Yeah, a lot of culture, a lot of cultural media became very politicized.
Yeah.
Comics, films, and surprisingly, video games, as you pointed out. And it's becoming, to me, more noticeable. I mean, one of the things that you commented on was your review on The Last of Us Part 2. And a lot of the stuff you mentioned there I actually agreed with. Like, you're talking about a sequel to one of the best reviewed, best selling games of the last
Mhm.
generation. And what we got, I it looked to me like a vanity project,
Uh,
shoehorned in into the storyline with like a lot of real world politics. And the thing is, most people go to games or other types of media like that for an escape. And yeah, I just think that that kind of direction sort of diluted it a bit.
Yeah. That doesn't mean that we hate lesbians or butch women being at the forefront of the game. The game's story just sucks. Did this game succumb to wokeness? I think the fandom has at the very least. Somehow if you dislike this game, it's not because of the story, it's because you're a homophobe. And I think that's a really dumb straw man way to try and win an argument. It's not because a white male lead isn't there, it's because the story sucks, plain and simple. So in closing, is this a good game? I'm gonna have to say no. Like I said before, this is a linear story driven game, and as good as the gameplay may feel at times, as beautifully animated as the world and characters may be, or as good as the acting and voice acting is, because it is brilliant, that all falls down when the story is a pile of shit. And that's what it is, it's just a pile of shit. They try to teach you a lesson in this game and they fail miserably. It is an unsatisfying mess of a game that has ruined the franchise for many. So my take on The Last of Us was, I've played Naughty Dog games since I think Naughty Dog is the ones that did Way of the Warrior, if I'm remembering the name of the game properly. So way back in the day, I was playing Naughty Dog games. So they've been one of my favorite developers since I was a child. So it wasn't like I had a vendetta against them. Most people can see that if you look at my playtime on PlayStation 4, Uncharted 4 was a lot of my playtime. So it wasn't like I had a vendetta against Naughty Dog. And I felt like I
No,
reviewed The
I,
Last of
I,
Us Part 2 fairly.
I
But
noticed you put Uncharted 4 in a lot of your videos as well. So I felt like, yeah, you were definitely coming at it from a fair and balanced sort of approach.
yeah,
I
I
don't know.
always I always took Naughty Dog to be they were very much about their quality, and I just felt like The Last of Us 2 was too focused on pushing this, like they were like force feeding us this like these ideas, these left-wing ideas that I didn't didn't want to see tampered with the story. And I don't have a problem with like someone being left or right wing. I don't think I'm inherently either, but I didn't like how the story was so clearly like forced down a road that it just didn't make any sense. They sacrificed the integrity of Joel to replace him with Brock Lesnar, who I just found to be, I just found the whole like sacrificing of his character, because this was a guy that went through the apocalypse, very aware of his surroundings. They portrayed him as like the hero to Ellie, but the villain to a lot of people because he done what was necessary to survive. And then out of nowhere, he walks into a building, tells these strangers his name, and gets his face caved in by Brock Lesnar. And I just thought it was the stupidest thing that I'd ever seen. But I mean, I gave it its praise. That the gameplay was okay. It felt dated, but it wasn't bad. I just felt the story was, I mean, for lack of a better word, garbage. And I got a lot of hate for that. But I can't see how someone can tell me that story was coherent in any way.
Well, I think you were correct to point that out, and you were also correct to point out the Metacritic score of the game. I mean, even currently, there's still a very low user score on it.
Yeah.
In contrast with the critic score, I probably should have put a spoiler warning before this, but yeah, I'm no fan of the character Abby. I'm going to put it out there because yes, you are right in saying that Joel, you built up the entire game, and audiences kind of emphasized with playing as Joel, and you had this father-daughter relationship going on the narrative, and that even as nasty, even as brutal as The Last of Us One was, you had that sort of narrative drive, that's kind of justification, and the ambiguity of its ending was, I think it was correctly placed. It was, you could either decide whether it was a good thing or a bad thing that happened at the end of the first game, but because it was left up to the player just to make their own mind about it, it was just like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I
But
actually thought that the ending of The Last of Us Part One was one of the best endings to a video game I've ever seen, because it actually left the player, it left you in a dilemma. Like you can see why someone would say he's the bad guy, but you can completely understand why he did what he did. I put myself in his shoes, and I was like, I would have done the same thing.
yeah, me
And
too.
then
Me too, in
the
fact.
I don't like, spoiler alert, the Last of Us Part Two's ending is one of the most unsatisfying things I've ever seen, because you go through this mess of a story and you're thinking to yourself, I'm finally going to get revenge on the person that killed basically my father figure. Not only does she get to her, but she gets her fingers ripped off and then she lets her go. And I was like, this is not a human reaction at all. That wasn't normal. And that whole game, it was like there was no payoff at all. I guess the feeling was to leave you feeling empty, but it went about it in a complete wrong way.
The whole game narrative and its premise of The Last of Us Part Two just felt pointless and very nihilistic. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, the whole theme was revenge. The whole theme was just a long journey, a 30-hour revenge journey.
yeah,
And yeah, I don't think it was, I think it was intended to make you feel like shit. But the thing is, like, that isn't the first game to guilt trip players. It just didn't do it effectively. Like other games, like, do you remember a game called Spec Ops The Line that was released in 2013? Did you ever
I
play it?
remember the name. I don't think I played it though.
Right, that did a very good job of basically sort of almost sort of stereotyping the sort of military hero coming in just to save like a disheveled city. But the more you act, the more harm you ended up doing in that game. And it had a very sort of the game narrative itself. It took influences from like the film Apocalypse Now and the novel Heart of Darkness. And I just think it was really well done. So if you get a chance, like if you don't intend on playing it, just watch like a big YouTube playthrough, and it's very well made in terms of a narrative. Like it does have a generic third person shooter kind of mechanics going on to it, but
Yeah.
very engaging stuff though. And that didn't pull its punches, whereas The Last of Us kind of did as well
Yeah.
in some areas where it didn't skip on the brutality though. I mean, I remember shooting a guy in the head and all you hear is this fucking gargling sound as he dies. Like most games would have just had him drop dead, maybe a bit of blood splatter. No, they went to the extra effort of just making it really nasty,
Yeah,
really brutal.
I thought the design of The Last of Us Part Two, that in some areas was really cool. Like I remember I was hiding from the people looking for me, and I set a mine down, and a dog walked on it, and you hear the dog squeal as whatever explodes.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember the sound effects were really good, but I don't mind having a story about revenge, and I don't mind a movie, a game, or a comic making you feel like shit, because I mean, like I'm a big fan of like the Injustice comic, and I
Oh
like
yeah,
horror films that have sad endings. I actually prefer a horror film that has a bad ending than a good ending. But
yeah.
I just feel like they told a bad revenge story, and I don't mind the game being controversial either. I mean, 5 Days in Fallujah is coming out soon,
Oh
and
yeah,
that's getting a
yeah.
lot of heat behind it. And I understand why. I understand why that's a sensitive topic, but I don't have an issue with a controversial game coming out. The fact of the matter is, for me, is that they just told a bad story, and it became a left wing versus right wing thing, and that the whole game, it just got lost in like politics again.